All right, and we are live. Welcome, everyone. Great to be here with you again. I am Dr. Philip Ovadia, coming with you from iFix Hearts, and really excited today to have Isabel Smith with me. Isabel is a nutrition practitioner and does a lot of amazing work around toxins and hormones and all of the great metabolic health related stuff that we talk about. And excited to have this conversation with her, as long as our audio is working. You're not hearing me, Isabel?
Uh-oh. There you are.
All right. How about now?
I cannot hear you.
Uh-oh. All right. Hold on, everyone. Technical challenges. I
can hear you. I can hear you both. So yeah. I'm not sure what the problem is.
I'm hearing Isabel. Check.
I can't hear you guys.
Check your speaker settings.
Audio. I could hear you before. Let me check another.
We'll just give a minute here for Isabel to work out her audio settings, and then we will get going. So stand by, please. All right.
I can hear
How
you.
about now, Isabel?
Perfect.
Awesome. All right. Well, welcome back. So as I was saying, really excited to have Isabel, an amazing nutritional practitioner. And we are going to talk about lots of exciting things related to toxins, hormones, metabolic health, and all of that great stuff. Isabel, why don't you start by giving your background, introduce yourself, and talk about what got you interested in nutrition.
So I'm an integrative. Thank you for having me. It's such a treat. I'm an integrative registered dietitian, and I run a practice that helps clients from 0 to 100 and plus in all areas of complex and non-complex health and wellness and illness and prevention and all sorts of stuff. And we help clients with toxicity problems, as you and I are going to discuss, hormones, and many other things. And I have had my practice now for 13 years, and I've been wanting to do this since I was 11. So this has been like a lifelong, for me, journey. I grew up in a household with my mom had endometriosis. And so, you know, food was always super important. And so this has been my life journey. And the exciting part for me in the world of health and wellness is that I find we're having much more conversation across the medical, field in areas of prevention and environment and food and movement, kind of across all stages, which is just really exciting because I've seen the evolution of all of this through my years of practice. So I have a incredibly clinically, I was trained at Dana-Farber, Columbia Presbyterian, and started my practice in 2012.
Yeah. So let's start maybe just with, what is an integrative clinical nutritionist, and talk about maybe how over the, many years that you've been in practice now, how that role maybe has evolved as we look at the overall management of complex patients.
Yeah. So for me, my foundation is truly in my clinical training. I feel super strongly that has allowed me to really help support these complex cases and people with a lot going on. I spent most of my clinical time in the oncology world, from head and neck cancers to, post-surgical oncology, a lot of ICU time. So a lot of people out there are like, but that's not relevant to real world nutrition. But actually it super is, because when we see people with a lot of things going on, right? I want to think about all the metabolic processes, the medications, the way that these things all work together, right? And so what's been really fun over sort of the evolution since I was working in the hospital, I worked with a juicing company while I was working clinically, and I was leading actually 30 and 60 day, like all vegetable juice programs. And it was super taboo in 2012 to be doing that and also working in a clinical care setting. And these people were having these incredible benefits, but was something I had to keep on the side at the time. And now it's like, people we're talking about nutrition and the first interactions we're having with our, clinicians. So over time, I've found that it's been an easier conversation to have. Like frontline conversations are, how's your sleep? How's your food? How's your relationship with food, right? Whereas in the past, at that point, I found a lot of the conversations were around, what are your symptoms, right? Like what's wrong? And now we're starting there, but we're also incorporating, so much more. So for me, being trained at Dana-Farber, which is where I spent 3 years, during grad school, was there 4 days a week helping, clients while they were getting chemo. We were talking about all these kinds of things. So people ask me all the time, like, how did you get your functional training? Well, for me, it's always been really the way my brain thought, because this is how I was trained. But now over time, right, there's all these other functional courses you can take and all that kind of stuff. And it's been fun to see the evolution of all the testing options and the conversations we can have across different, with different types of clinicians about how we use these types of tests. And for me, it's still really about the foundational stuff, honestly. The testing is nice, but like, how are you eating? How are you sleeping? Right? How are you going to the bathroom? What's your stress like? Like, we want to make it super complex, but really we need to start super simply in order to get our patients well. So did that answer your question?
Yeah, definitely. And I certainly agree with you, right? The basics are the basics. And, a lot of people want to maybe forego those, right? And jump over them. And they're like, give me the, magic, whatever. So I don't have to do the basics. And so it comes back to, yeah, you still got to do the basics, right? If any of that advanced stuff is going to have a chance of helping. Yeah. So talk about maybe what types of patients, find you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Seek you out and you work with. And again, give us a little bit of a sense of where that fits in the continuum. Are you oftentimes the only practitioner that these patients are seeing, or are you part of sort of a team approach to their issues?
My favorite is the latter, always, because I think, anybody who's got a bunch of stuff going on or not, like we all need support, right? Our bodies are living in a very hard environment for us to be thriving in, between the stress, the environmental toxicity, the food, which is like, unfortunately, fairly toxic in a lot of ways, right? And I don't mean to be like doom and gloom on this, but our bodies are in a hard environment to thrive, right? So for most of us, all of us, we do better when we're surrounded by care in a lot of different avenues. I am happy for a short while to be the only clinician on the team, but it is not my choice, because there's a lot of things I can do and a lot of things I can't do. And so like, I'm not a medical doctor, so I can't take care of the medical, the medical side of things in a particular way that a medical doctor can. But I certainly, when it comes to, especially in the toxicity realm, which I don't spend all my day doing, but I find that people are seeking me out for that more and more, because I'm finding that, unfortunately, I'm not so happy with a lot of the protocols that people end up on. They're super aggressive. They're super hard on the system. I fell into this world personally because this was my personal journey in the middle of running my practice. I became very unwell in 2018. And at the time, nobody was talking about this. In fact, people were arguing about the fact that this was even real, which, now to have you running, Dr. Ovadia, having you running tests like this, because you're like, maybe there's something I'm not seeing in the cardiovascular world and otherwise, inflammation wise, is such a beautiful evolution. But it's, for me, people tend to think of me as a detective. So they'll typically seek me out when they can't figure out what's happening, or they've been to other places, or something doesn't feel right, or something's being missed. I met with somebody today who's got a ton of vestibular stuff going on, dizziness, POTS. I'm seeing more and more of that tinnitus, which is typically related to inflammation. I will always run a toxicity test on somebody with that kind of thing going on. And typically it's pretty colorful. But, you know, people with diabetes, cancer also seek me out because we're talking about optimization at some point, cancer prevention, cellular metabolic health. How can I actually take care of my body, get the nutrients absorbed in the gut and then on a cellular level? Because at the end of the day, the more we can utilize and absorb, the better our bodies operate and function. And again, it appears very complicated, but it's actually not so complicated. So I'd say a lot of people seek me out for like gut and hormone stuff, but the reality behind the scenes is that complex is probably my niche. You know, people who have a lot of stuff going on, who don't feel well, their labs might be good, but their energy kind of stinks. And my number one question to anybody is like, what's your energy? How do you feel every day? You can have perfect lab work, be the perfect size, and if your energy is crummy, we're missing something.
Yeah, I think that's always a good place to start, right? You know, at a basic function, at a basic level, right? Everyone wants to be able to function and get through their day, right?
Yes.
And have the energy to get through their day. And if you don't, it's certainly a sign that something is amiss. Unfortunately, right, it's become so common in our society that we think it's normal, right? You know, oh, I'm just getting older and I'm just, you know, going through menopause or whatever it is that we don't really, I think one of the biggest problems we have is people don't even really know what it means to be healthy anymore and don't believe that it's possible to be healthy, right? They're like, well, I'm only a little bit sick, so I'm doing pretty good.
I think a lot of clinicians give up on people. I think a lot of clinicians are like, there's nothing more I can do to help you. And I'm like, oh my goodness, what do you mean? That's what, there's so many options. The beautiful thing for us in this world we're in is there's so many options, right? Testing is never I don't ever start. I'll take other clinicians' tests. We dive into diet, you know, work on the lifestyle stuff. And then if a test is appropriate, I'll run it. But I have options for 2,000 different tests. And if I don't know a person well enough, I'm not going to choose the right test. So for me, testing is a tool, not a primary, right? Except for in specific cases, like all the dizzy people, I'll typically run a tox test, but that's very few and far between, you know, because I think it's really about listening to our patients and being like, but how do you actually feel every day? Right? What do you feel like when you wake up in the morning? Right? Because that can have, you know, lots of different sort of segues into cardiovascular health, brain health, neurological health, hormone health. Hormones, I say to my patients all the time, hormones are an accessory, not necessarily a necessity. So if we've got all sorts of other inflammation and stuff going on, the hormones, your body's like, why do I need to procreate? There's no need for that. I'm not very well. So that's not important. And I think when people start to think about like, how do I feel and what's going on in my body as I walk through my day, I think that's just a different way for people to sort of think about their body and their wellness. And again, it's simple.
Yeah. So take us through maybe what that framework looks like, right? A patient comes to you and, you know, they have some things that they're complaining about. Maybe there are some things that are indicators of problems that they don't fully appreciate. And what's your process typically for just starting with someone who's, you know, really just getting started in this journey, right? They've taken that first step of recognizing that something's not right, but they really have no idea what it is and where to go from there.
Yeah. So, you know, my initial conversation with people is is extensive, but simple, right? It's like, well, first of all, tell me, how do you feel every day? And I'll have most people make a food symptom log, right? And walk me through what it's like to actually be in their shoes. So I'll have people keep an Apple note that's very simple, like woke up, had reflux, you know, was tired. It's simple stuff, right? We're not like calorie logging. We're not like giving super detail, but we're just like trying to walk through the day. Most important question I ask people is, are you pooping every day? You know, people are like, well, no, I go twice a week. Right. And you're like, well, that's a red flag. Right. So like, you're sleeping through the night? Well, no. Are you, you know, so like the basic stuff that's like, tell me how your energy is. Are you going to the bathroom? oh, that reflux that you checked off on the intake form for me, that's normal. They're like, oh yeah, I just thought that's normal. That's not normal, right? So for me, it's like, let's look at like how you feel in your day. Walk me through what your day looks like. Keep track of your first couple of days for me so I can just follow you, see what that's like for you. Because what that allows me to see is like, are you having food reactions? Are you, slumping in the afternoon and needing a nap? But it's normal for you. So you're not even considering that, because all of those things are sneaky signs of inflammation, even if they don't pop up on a blood test, SED rate, CRP, right? All these fancy blood tests. Those are signs that something's not equating. So for me, I'm like really understanding like how somebody's feeling. Are they going to the bathroom? Are they sleeping? Do they have a history of extreme stress? Are they in an extremely stressful? Are they eating? What are they eating? How much are they eating? Are they eating a ton of sugar, carbohydrates? Are they drinking alcohol? Right. So for me, it's like, let me gather all of the items in my basket so that I have a full understanding of this person's life and this person's day to day, so that I can better say, I think this is a good place for us to start, especially for people who are like, I don't know where to start. Right. For me, it's like, let's make sure we've got inputs and outputs, that we're understanding what we're responding to, that we're eating, protein, vegetables, right, consistently throughout the day. And oftentimes people are like, well, the simple stuff, I feel a lot better. No surprise to me, because I'm like, sometimes we don't even need to do any testing. Sometimes we correct the day-to-day stuff and people are like, wow, that's so much better, right? And that for me is wonderful. But then above that, we say, okay, these are the problem areas, whether it be gut, they're bloated, they're noticing that they've got air in their belly, or they're, have a lot of cardiovascular stuff going on. So maybe I'm asking the doctor for their, cholesterol levels, which I like to see anyway, working on different fiber sources. So all that kind of stuff comes into play, but only after I have the basic information. Does that make sense? Does that answer the question?
Yeah, definitely. So, and, I guess that people may be thinking, well, you're a integrative clinical nutritionist, right? So you're going to be really focused on food and what we're eating, and how, I guess, when you think about the general spectrum of disease,
Yes.
where do you think nutrition falls in how we should be thinking about disease?
Good question. So I think some people's bodies just need more nutrition than other people's, right? Some people can walk through life smoking, drinking, being exposed to whatever. They live till they're 95 and they have very few problems. I have some people in my family like that. And then you have people in your life who are like doing everything, not drinking, like sleeping the best they can possibly sleep 8 hours. And their nutrition requirements are like up here, right? So for most people that I see and you see, our nutrition requirements, are just raw resource requirements in our bodies are like here, and we're probably providing here. Now, that's a fault of over farming in a lot of cases, accessibility, right? Like to get the nutrients that our bodies need for our complex people, the level's up here, but what they're eating every day is providing at a lower level. So how can we easily maximize, right? A body that's diseased is usually undernourished in a lot of ways. And that can be confusing because people can be living in larger body sizes and say, well, how am I undernourished? Just because we provide calories doesn't mean we provide nourishment, right? So bringing somebody's intake to a place, you can do that through canned vegetables. You can do that through frozen vegetables. We can do that through smoothies, juices, soups, whatever. Lots of different easy ways. But just bringing the level up, right? The healthy fat, the olive oils, the olives, the avocados, the nuts, the seeds, in so many different ways, and just seeing what the difference in somebody's body is when we simply just bring the nourishment level up, it can go a long way, actually.
Yeah, a lot of what we talk about, and this is actually a big focus of my upcoming book, is around what I call nutrient density, right? And we've gotten we got into a situation where we think of food as an energy source, and it certainly is, right? But that's not the primary reason we eat, right? We eat for the nutrients. Our bodies then know how to turn that into energy. And we kind of got into the situation where we really just were looking at it backwards, right? We were focused on how much energy, calories are in that food, and it can lead us astray because, as you said, you can be, I guess you can have an excess amount of energy in your food, but not enough nutrients,
100%.
and find yourself in a very unhealthy place. Now, so where then do you see the what I always call non-food toxins, right, coming into this picture? And this is a whole host of things, right? It's the air that we breathe. It's the things that we come into contact, viruses, molds, heavy metals. You know, you can keep going down and down the list. But I'd love to kind of hear where you see that fitting in with the nutrition perspective.
Yeah. So on that list also should be relationships and stress.
Yeah.
So, again, we're talking about this requirement, which we don't really have a total understanding of in each of our bodies, right? There are some really good testing these days, genetic testing and other, nutrient levels, SpectraCell and other stuff to give us an understanding of how much nutrition we actually have in our bodies. Somebody who requires less and they can, maybe their detox pathways are better, they've got more glutathione floating around, whatever it is, they might not need as much as somebody else, right? Who is impacted by, maybe they're not filtering their water. Everybody out there should filter their water, no matter who you are, no matter where you are. Brita's better than nothing, but water is one of the scariest places for toxin consumption. From it's not mold necessarily, unless you have moldy fridge filter lines necessarily, or a moldy water bottle, but it's more like, a lot of these chloroform and arsenic and other like metals and scary chemicals in the water. So I'd say water is one. These water bottles and things, we like kind of go after them with a brush, and then behind the stainless steel is like lead and other scary chemicals. We're like breaking the seal on the metal, and then we're consuming leaching into the water, and then we're consuming. I see a lot of plastics in people, glyphosate, plastics, plasticizers. Plasticizers are like, Gladware keeps the flexibility of these hard plastics. I can see that in people's bodies. Some people accumulate plastic more than other people do. Some people detoxify it better than others. Obviously, we have mold and mycotoxins, which really, truly come from the environment. They don't really come from, drinking coffee. If you're sensitive to it, you could be sensitive, but I'm just not seeing people accumulate massive amounts of mold in their body from drinking coffee. It's just not really a thing, unless you're like, I don't know, drinking coffee all day long, which is a separate conversation. But even then, it's more about the inhalation. Organophosphates are major, right? These pesticides, they can be found on golf courses and other stuff, but usually it's consumption on your food that you think is organic from the grocery store. These organophosphates have been found to be really dangerous in the precipitation of things like Parkinson's and other neurodegenerative diseases. What else do I see? I have a ton of artists these days, which might not surprise you. The artists who have been in front of these big, paintings with the oil paints and the VOCs are, coming off I can see VOCs in people's bodies. A lot of the paints have heavy metals in them. Tell me an artist who keeps the paints off their bodies over time, right? Our skin is a giant mouth, and it absorbs pretty much whatever we put on it, 60-70% gets absorbed. So that certainly can be relevant for some people. But again, everybody's ability to detoxify is a little bit different. People with, if you have fallen down the rabbit hole of genetic, SNP testing and stuff from some of these, 23andMe or Seeking Health, will talk to you about your COMT pathway and some of these detox pathways we all have, and how sufficient your body is at doing this work versus, somebody else's. And it really is all about how well you detoxify. I do think that it's harder for our bodies to detoxify in this day and age. I really do. Based on what I'm seeing, but some bodies do it better than others.
Yeah, and I think that's a underappreciated part of the equation, right? Because again, we tend to identify that someone has a toxicity related to, pick whatever it is, heavy metal, right? And then we do the investigation and we find, oh, well, it was coming from your water, let's say. And it's like, great, you get your water filter, you take care of that, and you think problem solved, right? But if your body can't unload these toxins, you're still going to continue to have issues related to that. And I think one of the places we're seeing this more and more these days are, kind of circling back to some things like, viruses that people aren't able to clear. And whether we're talking about long COVID or chronic Lyme, or, many others, right? And it comes down to, you got to then be able to support the body. Yeah. And I think a lot of it comes down to, if the body's dealing with 30 different toxic assaults, right? And we just, you got to ramp down the overall kind of load there and let the body start to recover from that. One of the things that's interesting to me and that I know you've talked about is histamine and what role that plays in some of the disease that we see.
Yes. Yeah. And one interesting thing about the virus, because I forgot to mention the viruses, I mean, we're loaded with viruses, right? And fair enough. And some of them occupy more space and get more aggravated by a toxicity, right? Basically, what these toxins can do is they can suppress the immune system, right? And affect how well the immune system tolerates all of this kind of stuff. So when you have elevated levels of toxins, sometimes even viruses or even, right, these Lyme and other, parasitic and bacterial infections, it can aggravate the mast cells. So the mast cells are what produce histamine. And histamine is so interesting. And most of these people, myself included when I was in it, I was having anaphylaxis. I couldn't be in a room with peanut butter at the height of my own stuff. And my histamine numbers on blood work were 0. And I see that a lot. All of my MCAS numbers were 0, but I couldn't even be in a room with peanut butter. And I've been eating peanuts my whole life. All my allergies are gone. No more anaphylaxis, no more hives, no more problems. But like these infections and these toxins make the mast cells hyperproduce histamine, which is a very normal, healthy part of the human body, but in excess, or when we can't break it down enough and the cup is overflowing, what happens is it becomes incredibly inflammatory. We produce a ton of adrenaline from it, which can create a lot of problems in the gut lining, can irritate the nervous system, can affect smooth muscle tissue, including the cardiovascular system, right? It can perpetuate, inflammation in the cardiovascular system, brain, long-term. So it is meant to be an inflammatory alarm chemical, but when you are overproducing for a super long period of time, it really does become quite inflammatory for the body. So, I love when people take antihistamines. I do actually use them a bit in my practice just to sort of like help me get people from point A to point B if I need it, but it's not a long-term solution, and they can actually just mask what's going on behind the scenes and create more overproduction of histamine longer term if it's used in too much quantity over too much time frame.
And what are some of the indicators, right, of histamine becoming problematic? Because again, you sort of alluded to it, right? You have, typical seasonal allergies, right, which are histamine, right? And usually we're not too worried about that, right? But then there's a line that gets crossed that you get into this histamine overreaction or histamine intolerance, some people will call it. What are some of the indicators that people should be looking for to figure out if they have a histamine issue?
Great question. So histamine symptoms can look like 1,001 different things. And sometimes it can be hard to sort of identify that it is or isn't because they can feel like they're completely unrelated. It could be flushing after eating, sweating after eating, dizziness. It could be hives, flushing, acne, ear ringing, heart palpitations, real like nervous system irritation, restless leg, anxiety. That was a major one for me. Anaphylaxis, hives, bloating, diarrhea. So a lot of people will come to me being like, I'm on a FODMAP diet because I have a gut problem. And I quickly have them do that food symptom log. And I'm like, no, this is a histamine problem. So now we've given these people back all their foods, really, to speak of, and they feel a lot better. The beautiful thing about this histamine stuff is that if you shut it down, it shuts down very quickly and you can see improvements tremendously. So it's mostly like this nervous system component of the things I just mentioned. You could have trouble sleeping. Some, a lot of people have gut issues, like bloating, GERD is one, sort of like rapid, got to run to the bathroom, I'm going to have diarrhea thing. And let me think, any of the others that I missed, right? Runny nose, sinusitis kind of stuff. And look, people who have chronic, seasonal allergies, there is usually some kind of like, the histamine cup is a little full. We're like a little close to the brim here. So it's not like, oh my gosh, the ship is sinking, but it's sort of like, if you're chronically having seasonal allergy stuff, so histamine might be a little bit of a sensitive item for you. And it's definitely something, I think people dismiss this seasonal allergy thing and they're like, oh, it's just seasonal allergies. When I'm like, maybe you do a little food symptom log and you notice every time I eat lemon, my heart races, or I feel really flushed, or I have to run to the bathroom because I have diarrhea, right? On our website, isabelsmithnutrition.com, we have a what to eat and what not to eat when you're, need to be low histamine. There's a lot of lists out there, so it can be confusing which one to follow. I have one on there if you can just look it up. But it's a good thing to take a look at because it's a very easy thing to shut down. If you have sort of histaminergic overproduction happening, obviously you want to get to the root cause, of which could be gut bacteria, toxicity, environmental stuff going on, typically are like the biggest ones I see. We don't want to just let this free roaming overabundance of histamine kind of roar forever if we can help it.
Yeah, one of the fascinating things that I continue to see in practice, right, is just we're working on someone's metabolic disease and their heart disease and their diabetes, and we get them better. And at the end, they're like, oh, I've had seasonal allergies for 30 years and all of a sudden it's springtime and I'm not, inflamed anymore. I'm not, sneezing and runny eyes for 3 months. So very interesting to see that. Well, I could continue to talk to you for hours about this stuff. I've certainly enjoyed becoming colleagues and sharing patients with you. Why don't you tell people where and how they can get in touch with you, how you work with patients? Because I'm sure there are going to be a lot of interested people.
No, thank you. It's such a treat to be here. Truly. Thank you for your interest and your care in the world of how all this toxicity and inflammation affects your patients. And just, it's really refreshing to have a doctor who is just so invested in it. You can find me at isabelsmithnutrition.com or Instagram, Isabel Smith Nutrition. We did just start a TikTok, but she's early in the stage of things. So, you can reach out to us via either Instagram or our website. We are constantly taking on clients. We actually just expanded into pediatrics, which is really exciting too, because I have a lot of kiddos whose, parents I'm treating for toxicity that we're also treating the kids too. So we're always taking on new patients. I have a team of wonderful dietitians. We're all taking on patients, and always, it's my commitment to make sure that we don't have super long waiting lists. I don't like waiting lists myself. So if you reach out to us through our website or on Instagram, you can chat with us about how we can help. And we have lots of different ways we work with people.
Yeah, you work with people remotely. And,
all over the country.
Yeah.
All over the country and all over the world. I'm in the Northeast, but my team's all over the country. So we see people everywhere.
Awesome. Well, like I said, I've been impressed with your team and some of the patients that we've shared. And it's been great getting to talk with you some more here. Look forward maybe to some future conversations because, like I said, there are lots of topics we could have hit that we didn't have time for today. So encourage everyone, go check out Isabel Smith Nutrition. And also encourage people, whatever platform you're watching on, drop your comments. Let us know what you're thinking, what questions you have. Follow us. We have been doing live streams a couple of times a week here at iFix Hearts. and just a never-ending parade of very interesting people that we get to talk to. And if you're interested in the clinical care that we provide, you can go to ifixhearts.com and hit the talk button to connect with our team. And thank you, Isabel, and thank you to the audience, and we will see you again soon.